Here we go. Welcome back to You, Me, and NFP Unplugged. We are your hosts, Sarah and
Val, and we are two imperfect people sharing about a perfect God.
Aren't we blessed that he does not call the qualified, but
qualifies the called? So this
it.
is going to be raw and real, guys. Let's raise our glasses up and cheers.
Cheers.
I am so excited to have the privilege to introduce to you guys tonight this awesome couple who God has done amazing things in and is now doing amazing things through, including this testimony they're going to share with us tonight. Anthony and Melissa, thank you guys for joining us. We're so excited to have you here. And Anthony and Melissa have been married for 7 years. They have 4 beautiful children, and their story is of hope and healing from childhood sexual trauma, emotional neglect, and same-sex attraction. And they're just here to share their story and to speak about living out the call to holiness and obedience to God through their vocation of marriage and natural family planning. You guys, your story is so beautiful, and you're here to remind us all that it's never too early nor too late to seek personal healing or healing for our marriage. And it's never too late for God to work his mercy and healing and transformation and restoration in our lives. So thank you for speaking this message from brokenness to hope to us. And just a reminder, if you have little ones around, this is going to be raw, real, vulnerable. And we thank you guys for your witness with that. But it might be a great time to put earbuds in or get them occupied in another room and then come back and listen to this, because you're not going to want to miss their story.
So before we hear their story, if you guys want to share with us just a little bit about yourself, not your story yet, but a little bit about yourself. And really quickly, I'll start. This little baby mama.
Okay.
Anyway, let's get started. Let's hear a little bit about you.
Okay. Well, like Val said, we've been married 7 years. We have 4 daughters. They're really close in age, like 5, 4, 2, and 8 months.
Yep.
Other than that, I'm self-employed. I'm self-employed, and Melissa's a stay-at-home mom. She takes care of all the kids.
I try my best.
Yeah.
We're sleep deprived most days.
She's homeschooling.
Coffee addicts.
Homeschooling our oldest one. So yeah, it's busy, but it's fun.
Anthony's keeping out that he, in the summertime, likes to use his green thumb.
Yeah.
And he gardens, and we have a greenhouse, and he's the father to 6 chickens.
Yeah.
Which I hope are gone soon because they're getting old.
Yeah, they're not producing eggs anymore.
So they're useless to us. We might go let them out in the wild. We're not sure.
Yeah.
If you let them out, bring them over to my house and let them out. I love chickens.
Oh, perfect.
They've been really fun. We're gonna get a whole new batch of chicks soon, which is really fun for the kids.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, no, Anthony, he actually owns 2 businesses, so we kind of are just in this place that God brought us to, and life is going really well.
Yeah.
We're
in a good place.
Yeah.
So
I love that you're trying, because that's like the story of my life.
Right.
Like, I'm a stay-at-home mom, homeschooling, trying.
Yeah. Trying.
Aren't we
Right.
all trying? I mean,
We are.
that is the story of our lives.
Yes.
Exactly.
Constantly trying.
Ever-changing vocation
Mhm.
and ever-changing children.
Yeah.
With all
Especially-
different personalities.
Yeah, especially at that age, they change so quick.
Right.
So,
Mm.
Yeah.
so,
Well, it's a
Well-
beautiful thing.
Before we get started, then, is there anything that happened this week that was funny? Because something just happened tonight that's absolutely hilarious. At least I think so. So if there's anything, I'm going to share this quick funny story while you're thinking about it. And if you don't have anything to share, then that's fine.
okay.
But I go upstairs right before we come in to do this, and my 7-year-old, who has feet that smell like a locker room, it's horrifying. He's taking a shower, and I'm like, son, wash your hair, he's like doing this, and he's like, well, I am, Mom. I am washing my hair. And I said, Creed, I don't see a single bubble like on your head. And he's like, but I put soap there. So I look in the shower, sure as the world, he's using the pump of shampoo that was just filled up with water.
Oh boy.
Oh gosh.
But I guess kids Yeah.
Like love
so
to play with.
They play with
that
it.
I like to
Yeah.
play with.
Mhm.
I
Yeah.
don't know how many showers he has taken.
He's never himself.
His mouth. And I mean,
Is
it's
this
so
what he's
bad.
been washing his feet with too?
Oh,
mean,
I
boy.
guess so.
Why he has stinky feet.
I mean, it was bad. And I'm like, so bad that his friend just the other day was like, dude, Creed, your hair smells bad.
Oh no. Oh my goodness.
I'm so glad I
my
went up there and
And
saw this pump of water.
Oh.
So how
Oh
many
my
years
gosh.
has he not actually
Thank you.
bathed?
I-
Yeah.
Apparently, we
That
can't
pump's
keep
been
that.
there for 2 years.
Yeah.
I'm
Same
like,
company.
sweetheart, don't you notice the difference
Aw.
between like
I know.
scrubbing bubbles and seeing them like coming down your face and just
Oh man.
water?
Yeah.
And there he was like
Oh,
trying
gosh.
so hard, like I am watching it. Look.
Yeah, we have the opposite problem. We go through shampoo and body wash like
Oh,
nobody's
yeah.
business.
Yeah, they'll
We
open
try
up the
and
bottle
hide
and
it.
it's
Uh-huh.
They'll open it and just like pour it when we're not looking, or they just will wash their hair and then we walk away for 2 seconds and there will be this big mat of like 15 pumps
Oh,
of
yeah.
shampoo in one spot,
Yeah.
and then they proceed to scream while you try and rinse it out.
Yeah, shampoo and
It's
two-
not-
The ration the shampoo. Just send some of your shampoo to Sarah.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
will. It's a good
Hey,
Christmas
just-
gift.
Just make sure it's shampoo because I'm not sure I could handle the lump of conditioner
Oh,
because that
boy.
might take 45 minutes to rinse out.
Oh my
Oh,
gosh.
man.
Too
Anyway.
funny. That was a good laugh.
That's
That
a
was-
good story. Yeah, I'm glad you shared it.
Ours,
Yeah.
I don't think ours tops it. So
No.
That's fine.
I don't have one either, so I think we'll just go with lean in on yours and enjoy
Smelly
that.
Creek. Perfect.
sounds good.
All right.
Aw.
Well, we're gonna get into the raw and real now.
Yeah,
so
let's-
a lot of laughing.
Yeah.
So we end.
I hope you're done with the laughing. No.
Yeah.
So,
We're
you want me to
just
get
kidding.
started?
We're kidding.
Yeah, let's go ahead. Share your story.
Okay.
All
guys.
right.
Okay, so I'm just gonna go right back to my childhood. A lot of the issues that we encountered in our marriage, which we'll get to later, stem from childhood stuff. As you said in the beginning, childhood sexual trauma.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I was one of 6 kids. I was raised in a very devout Catholic homeschooled household. I was really sheltered, that my parents kept a lot, they just protected us, I guess, but it was very sheltering. Sexual things weren't really talked about in our house too much. It was very hush hush to even talk about them. So yeah, so I was pretty ignorant on that end. So around the age of 13, a friend of mine started to talk to me about sex and ask if I knew what it was and stuff, and I really didn't. And he started to introduce the idea of like touching or engaging in sexual activity, and I went with it. And, yeah, that actually went on for a couple years. It got pretty intense, and it went on for a couple years, and I think about 2 years, and then so 2 years, and then and then also, at that same time too, he also introduced me to pornography. So that was the start of, doing my like first time ever doing sexual activity like that. And then pornography.
At
I introduced
13.
that. Yeah, 13.
13.
So, friendship lasted a couple years and then it faded. And I was left carrying this burden of this secret I had. Nobody knew about it. I never told anybody. I was scared to death for anybody to ever find out. So I just kind of buried it and just kind of wrote it off like, oh, it was probably something that something that happened when I was a kid, and it'll never affect me again. But I had no idea the lifelong repercussions that would actually have on me, years down the road. So so I went into my teen years. I think throughout all that, I had a porn addiction. I was always looking for more porn, and then when into my early 20s, I really got heavy into porn, and I really struggled. Probably the 20s were probably like my darkest time.
Yeah.
I really struggled with dating. I think because I always had that weight on my shoulders and that secret. And I had such a hard time just being myself, And so I always struggled with dating. And I think, sorry. So I during that time in my 20s, like I said, it was the darkest time, and I really struggled also with like lack of confidence, self-loathing. There were times when I had thoughts of suicide. I never attempted or anything, but just those thoughts would run through my head. Just feelings of worthlessness. Throughout it all, I was drinking heavily. Drinking's always been a struggle for me, and I believe that's kind of the root of it was that stuff from my past.
So do you think that, just to interrupt you, do you think the drinking was just a way to try to cover things up, like just a way to deal with your feelings that you were experiencing?
Yeah, I think it was to numb them.
Yeah.
To mask, maybe.
Yeah, numb them.
And just putting a name with it. I mean, we know so many people try to mask things with, or numb things with alcohol or drugs or whatever it may be, but I just want
total like coping mechanism.
Right.
Yeah, it was a coping mechanism for sure. And I really became very good at hiding this because I've been doing it since I was a little kid.
Yeah.
And I kept on a good face. I never
he had a lot of friends.
Yeah, I had good friends. And maybe like my brother who I talked to, him and I were really close. We talk a lot on the phone because he lives out of state, but he knew like I was maybe struggling with stuff, but still, even he didn't have any idea of what happened in my past. So anyways, it
was really deep.
Yeah, it was really deep. And I thought, I decided early on that I was just gonna bury that, and take it to the grave with me. I was never gonna tell anybody about it. No one was ever gonna know. And I thought I could do it. But so during those 20s, I still held on to my faith. I still went to church, and what is it? Oh, like a Bible verse that always kind of helped me through that time was that I always loved was Matthew 11:28. Come to me, all who are weary and find life burdensome, for I will refresh you. Take my yoke upon your shoulders and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble of heart. My yoke is easy and my burden light. And that, obviously stuck with me because I had that burden and I just didn't know where to go with it. I didn't know what to do. I had no one to talk to. So that really like helped me get through a lot of dark times. So I had that porn addiction that had been going on for a long time, and that was always straight porn. But as time went on, probably into my mid 20s or so, I fell into male porn. And then, that's kind of where that was the point I ended with. I kept looking at pornography, but that was like the darkest it went. And around the age of 29, I was kind of like accepted my place in life. Like maybe I'm just going to stay single. Maybe that's what God wants for me, just to be single. Like I'm never going to get married or date or anything. So, around that time when I was finally accepting that, and actually it was that year when I was 29, I had a friend of mine over for a bonfire, and he asked if he could bring a girl that he was kind of seeing. They weren't dating really, but they were just kind of hanging out. And it was Melissa. So he came over. So he came over, he brought this girl, and her and I just hit it off. We just like talked all night. They were there till like early in the morning.
I didn't even care about the other.
Yeah. So
see you later, buddy.
Special here.
Yeah, and she was we just had fun, and she was the first, really like the first. First girl like I was really like comfortable with, where I just felt like I could be myself with, and I didn't have to put on a mask or anything. So we had a good time that night, and I actually texted my friend the next day, and it's funny because I said, you better marry that girl, because I'm like, she's so great, you got to marry her. And that fell through, thank God. For that. But so that's kind of my story leading up to, then we started dating. And then I was actually still looking at porn at that time. And I remember actually like sitting there looking at it, and then thinking like, this is right in the beginning when we just started like kind of hanging out, and I remember thinking like, I don't want this anymore.
Mm.
I already knew like how self-destructive porn was. I mean, it destroys you. And I was like, I don't want this anymore. I just want, I like this girl. I want to date her. So I swore off porn. I turned it off, and I just said, I'm never going to look at it again. And then we dated for about 7 months. Everything moved very quickly. We dated for about 7 months. We wanted to get married quick, so we got married 6 months later. So it was a very
No, that's not true. We dated, we got engaged, and then we got
oh,
married.
I'm sorry. Yeah, dated, got engaged 7 months later.
We didn't have a rocket wedding. But
Yeah, and then we got married.
Ladies always remember those like details.
I
Yes,
know.
Actually, you want to know why I remember? Because I got him a keychain as a gift, and then he made some joke like, you didn't get me some keychain with a wedding date on it, did you? And I was like, oh man, I guess I'll keep it for myself. So I have our wedding date on there.
Yeah.
No, you're killing me.
Just help me remember.
You are
So-
killing us.
That's funny.
I did the same thing. I got Pat a
You
keychain
guys are
with our
killing me.
date
You
on
did
it.
too? Is that a
I
thing?
gave my husband a keychain,
Well, I'm like, what am I gonna do with this?
You gotta get a gift for
okay.
the husband.
but I don't know how it ended. But I love my husband. But that keychain is where? On my keys.
Yeah.
Like,
Same here. It's so
funny.
funny. Yeah,
Oh, that's
mine's this
hilarious.
big old round thing, and I'm like,
Oh,
Yeah, I was
really
like, I
funny.
don't want
so
more stuff
ladies,
on
if
my
you're
key.
listening,
why would
put
I
it
buy
on your
him?
keychain if you buy one?
Oh,
Put it
that's
on their
hilarious.
underwear.
Yeah.
A pair of socks?
Oh, this is
useful.
funny. This is good.
So that yeah, so anyways, we got married, and that's kind of where it or that's where I'm gonna stop, and I'm gonna let Melissa take over. But I carried that secret. I carried all my stuff, the male porn and the childhood sexual trauma.
Mhm.
I carried that into our marriage without ever saying a word to her. She had no idea.
No clue.
And
No clue.
again, I was just going to bury it. I thought, especially once I got married, I thought, well, it'll never come up. And, you know, once we settle into marriage, it's like something, I'll just forget about it and stuff. But it doesn't go away.
We're good at masking.
It
these
rears
things,
its
and
ugly head.
we get better over
So,
time, huh?
Yeah.
So for me, I grew up Catholic as well. I'm the youngest of 5 kids. I was raised in a pretty sheltered home, but there were some things that definitely weren't sheltered. Overexposure to. But anyway, I went to Catholic schools until middle school, and then I went on to go to public school for high school. Dated one kid in high school. It's pretty normal relationship, nothing too much happening there. And it really wasn't until my senior year I began to enter like the drinking scene when I was in the workforce, and kind of started experiencing real world. The real world around me wasn't as contained as it was when I was a child, which is pretty normal for most people. And then when I went off to college, I entered into a relationship, and that relationship really opened the door to a lot of things that changed my world. So my second boyfriend, it was in my early 20s, he came into my life, and this relationship opened the door to being sexually active. And not only were we just physically active, it opened the door to pornography as well. He introduced pornography slowly over time. And it made me uncomfortable, to be honest. But it just kind of, I went with it because I really liked him and I felt important, I suppose. I had a boyfriend and we were dating. And then he went on to introduce sex toys, which is pretty intense for a young 20-year-old girl. So that relationship was extremely unhealthy. It was pretty emotionally abusive, actually. And it ended really painfully. I really didn't know what to make of it. I was just a young girl, and I was seeking all the things young girls seek. And I didn't really know how to get out of it well, other than keep coming back only to get hurt over and over again. And it ended with some pretty bad hurts. So I went on from there to start binge drinking and continue my hidden addiction to pornography as a woman. I mean, that's not usually talked about frequently. But you know, we'll talk about later where that stems from as well, that I didn't really understand at that time. I went on to live a very promiscuous lifestyle, and I offered my body to any man in any way in order to fill some sort of deep void that I carried. Again, that I didn't understand why. I was just really struggling to be a healthy, flourishing young adult. And like Anthony said, I'm sure a lot of my friends couldn't really tell I lived with a bunch of women at the time. And we had a great, fun social life. I was very social. But I did have this secret side of me that was just in total pain. That's a good word for it, because it was just confusion and pain. And I just kept seeking the same thing over and over again. And some of them would last like months or 2 months, but then most of them were just hookups through dating apps. Even some of the Catholic ones, it was really tough. And so, I struggled with anxiety and depression during that time. And I struggled with my relationship with the Lord, because I was raised Catholic. I knew what I was doing was sinful. And I really began to fall away from attending Mass and the sacraments regularly, and really keeping up my baptismal duties. And so I knew my lifestyle was harmful, and my faith was still there, but it wasn't perfect. And after many months of feeling empty and sick of doing that, I had this distinct memory of laying in my bed, which was like in a basement in this old house where we like shared a bunch of rooms. So I didn't really have much light coming in. It was just depressing. It was just I wasn't flourishing in a lot of ways, even physically. I didn't know what healthy was, and I remember having this conversation with God where I was just like crying, and I was pleading with him. And I told him, you have to do something to save me, because this grip is so bad. And I hated it. I loathed myself. I loathed what I was caught up in, and I wanted to get out. And with these stimulants, there is an addiction aspect to it, like a high that the body gets. And so, it just was an awful feeling. And I cried out for help. And it's so funny, because I distinctly remember that night. And then shortly after that is when Anthony came into the picture.
Wow.
And he was nothing like the other men I was dating, nothing like the same cycle of men I would go through. He was respectful, and he had a house already, and he had a garden. And I was like, this guy knows what he's doing. Stability. It was total stability.
It was the garden.
And it was God. And it was the garden. Actually, the basil. He was eating basil out of the garden. And I was like, all right, I'm sold.
Well, what I find beautiful in that is something that you said about you were lying in your bed, this dark room, like you sound like you're drowning, right? Like you're going underwater, and you just reach out like, God, save me. And what does he do? Like he does, you surrender in that moment. And that's when God does his work, is when we are ready to be healed. When we say, all right, God, like I can't do this. Save me. I'm literally drowning. And then how he brings Anthony in, that's cool. And I know you guys have more to share together, but
so after that, we had all the talks about the hot topic issues, and we agreed on pretty much everything with faith and morals, which was awesome. But then the one thing that we did struggle with was sex before marriage. We both entered into the relationship physically, and really didn't understand at that time even what emotional intimacy was. And so we just did what most couples do, and we contracepted. But then I know towards the end, when we got engaged, we really wanted to work on it. And so we had stopped and abstained for a while, because we did have this ounce of goodness in us, and we did want to do something right. And so it definitely wasn't perfect, and we could have done better. But we tried, and we were able to enter into our marriage totally at that point after we got married, without any contraceptives, which was beautiful. So before we got married, we took an NFP class online. And we were like, man, this is going to be easy. It was like, we got like this cool certificate. It was like 5 minutes. It wasn't enough. It wasn't enough. And, I think we just kind of walked into marriage, not really understanding the vocation we were truly getting ourselves into, in the complexity of it. So really, I'm going to continue talking for a moment, because after our first child was born is when things started for me to come up. I entered into Anthony and I's relationship. I didn't have any memories. I thought my family was very normal, very, very close. And I was just a normal kid. I mean, I always felt like interiorly something was off, but, I just lived my life with this like cloud over my head and I didn't even realize it.
Mhm.
So after the birth of our first child is when I started experiencing symptoms of postpartum depression. But it was more than that. And come to find out later, it was underlying what's called complex post-traumatic stress syndrome.
Okay.
So they call it like PTSD, which a lot of people think war veterans and whatnot, but you know, people can have that from trauma from their childhood. And often trauma can be triggered by birth or other traumatic events. And I had repressed many things for many years. But my body was always telling me something if you look back and in hindsight, looking back. So I had these very abnormal symptoms, some of which I realized I carried into my adult years. I didn't understand. I had erratic behavior. I had a hard time controlling my emotions. It was like fireworks were coming off all the time. And I was very reactive. I would run and drive away in a fight. Couldn't even have an adult conversation. Almost like a kid, like I didn't even know how to just be. I had frequent night terrors. I'd wake up screaming or hallucinating, bursts of anger and rage. And that was probably the scariest part as a new mom because I felt like a monster. And it scared us for our daughter. And then I had suicidal thoughts of just wanting to die. It became really dark really fast, you guys. So it was a lot after having a baby. Most people are like, well, this is a joyous time, you know, but and there were many factors. I mean, I was a new mom, going from 0 to 100 is a lot.
Right.
And then also breastfeeding for the first time. And we made it through a lot of hurdles. But I was pretty closed off to love. And I carried, like Anthony, this deeply rooted shame, feelings of helplessness, especially as a new mom. I just felt helpless. I remember there were times where Elena would be crying and I would be crying with her. And I would just like pray, like, Lord, can someone just please come pick up my baby? Because I can't move. I would be so shut down and just in this place of, I don't even know, just darkness, like just helplessness. So I remember Anthony brought this up and he reminded me that I had yelled to him one time. What did I say?
Yeah, we were in a fight and, you know, we had our first, this was just with Elaine, our first child. And yeah, Melissa was yelling. She's like, this was a mistake. I'm not supposed to be the mother of this child. God made a mistake. She said that. And she really believed it. I mean, that was
I remember I was shouting like at him, like, God made a mistake. I'm not supposed to be your mom. This is wrong. What's he doing to me? I was so angry, you know, I was so confused. So I truly didn't know how to function and it took a toll on our marriage and on my motherhood. But eventually I started to see a therapist and I learned how to control my emotions. She taught me how to ground myself before we could do any sort of work, which she recognized early on. I needed a lot of work, but she didn't tell me that. She walked with me as the first soul who was willing to just listen and validate and hear. You know, so it was just, it was really empowering to be able to just begin to heal.
So at the point you realized you needed therapy, like, was that something that you were like, Anthony, I need to see someone? Or was that something, Anthony, that you kind of told her like, all right, I think you need some help here? Like, how did that?
No, actually, I was against therapy because, you know, I was like, you know, I thought that's for people with lots of issues. Like that's not for us.
Such a lie of the devil that we all believe until we go through it. And it's like, oh, this is good. This is God's work.
Right. Not like in the movies.
No, and now, I mean, you'll hear at the end, but we've had 3 therapists at one point that we were seeing throughout some of our marriage stuff. So no, I'm definitely a fan of therapy if needed now. And like anytime, even now, if she still needs to go, I'm just like, we'll
try and work through it.
But, of course. But I'm saying if there's ever a need for it, it's okay.
We're not afraid. Right. And at that time, I mean, really, we were just learning what postpartum depression was. We didn't even know about that.
Right.
It wasn't just baby blues. It just kept going and it got worse. And really what pushed us was we went out on an outing and I was suicidal. Our baby was crying. We went out to eat and I couldn't get her to calm down. And we got in the car and I yelled at him and I was like, I just want to kill myself. I can't do this anymore. And she was screaming and he was like, he didn't even know what to do. He was like, are you okay? And I was like, no. And I just was like freaking out. Like,
that would be a really scary moment for you, Anthony.
It was
both of you, right?
Like, it was very scary. And due to my stuff in my past, I had like walls up, like emotional walls, like
Okay.
barriers.
Mhm.
So I was not an emotional person. So I did not deal with her stuff well. I just shut down.
You just
I'm like, I don't know what the
yeah.
heck's going on here. I don't know what she's screaming about. You know, I couldn't understand it.
Right. You
So-
didn't necessarily know how to communicate with one another.
No,
which is
not at
different.
Right.
all. No.
So did you just
so-
decide to go, Melissa? Like, how did
Yeah,
that
so
work itself
I had
out?
actually, I called a woman, I was recommended, and God bless her, I hung up. My baby started crying and I said, I'm sorry, I have to go. And I hung up, and she called me back. And if she hadn't called me back, I don't think I would be here. So she's
praise
a
God
great
that
patient.
she like
Yeah,
called back to check on you.
right.
Yeah.
So really she helped me get grounded first and kind of settle down.
Mhm.
She was very patient with me, and then I would take the baby and we'd go for walks around the block. It was really special. And eventually I began to process these emotional wounds from my childhood that I had a dramatic impact on my entire life, and process my family relationships between my parents and my siblings and all this stuff I had to work through. And then in the months following, I began to process the sexual wounds from my childhood, and I had carried these symptoms, and they were just exacerbated, if that's the word, exacerbated.
Yeah.
Okay,
I don't
whatever.
know.
They were just made worse after I had Elena, and I began to have severe symptoms that my body was presenting. And I kind of just like did this because I was like, this is weird. This is disturbing. Okay, fleeting thought, like push it to the side, push it, you know.
Mhm.
And so when I had the therapist, I was able to finally begin talking about those things.
Mhm.
And I got to the root of the symptoms. I was experiencing almost like peeling back the layers. You can get to the root, to the bottom. And so the physical crosses that brought into our sexual life were pretty great. There was frequent numbing and even some mild disassociation I would experience in our intimate life. And I didn't even understand that until like a year later. And I would also become very weepy afterwards, and just some things that weren't normal for a newly married couple. I mean, you're newlyweds for like 5 years, right? Isn't that what they say? And so it was hard. I wanted to love my husband, and I wanted to feel loved, and we kept hitting this barrier. And so when my body was ready to heal, it was safe enough. And at one point, yeah, we were in therapy. I was in therapy 2 days a week, and then we were in marriage therapy because he needed to know how to support me. And then I just want to say that without my faith and without our kids, I don't know where I'd be. They got me out of bed every day and kept purpose. It was a very dark time. I had a really hard time processing it because I didn't quite remember a lot of things. I just had a lot of fragmented memories. And so Anthony, during this time.
Yeah, during this time, yeah, so when she's going through all this therapy and
we were pregnant with our second one too.
Yeah,
during this time. That helps me remember.
So she's going through all this therapy, and I'm like, what the heck's going on? This isn't the marriage I thought I would have. So I actually fell back into pornography. It was male porn. I think I went back to that because that was my escape. That was where I left off, you know, when
we were suffering.
Yeah. And it kind of seeped back into my life. I didn't just go and seek it out. It kind of like I looked up stuff, and then all of a sudden an image would come in, and it just, that's how Satan works. You know, he just does a little thing here and there, and then gets you hooked. And then eventually I was back in it fully.
It's like you have this garden with this fence around it, and everything in your garden is struggling right now. So you're looking outside of it, right? Like that's your way of coping, is looking outside.
Exactly.
And,
yeah. And so that happened, and she had no clue about that. Of course, I was keeping it a secret.
Yeah, we had our second baby, and I remember checking in on him because we were still practicing NFP. And so our little Nora was born, and I mean, we would check in on each other. We had that line of communication with NFP, and he would say he was doing okay, and we would wait however many weeks you're supposed to wait. But then we in the beginning of our marriage, we thought NFP was using an app on our phone, and maybe it is for some people, but this was like a prediction app, and we weren't using any method. And we had our first, but then we had our second, and then we were like, oh, we should really learn something. So we learned a method, and I had to learn it postpartum, took a special class on it. And then we realized I was very fertile postpartum, even while breastfeeding and co-sleeping and doing all the things, my cycles would return. And then we had a surprise baby in there. So 5 months postpartum with our second, we got pregnant with our third child.
Yeah.
And it was a fun surprise. We of course were overjoyed, but there was definitely this like, whoa, God, the timing with everything. We had been going through some family stuff, just a difficult time in our lives. Him and I were just not intimate, really. We were just still really struggling. So this is when we began to understand the gift of fertility, but then also that there's a big cross that can come with that. And we had a lot to learn, really. So at this point in our marriage began to rapidly decline. Anthony wasn't really emotionally present, and my emotional needs as a wife weren't being met, let alone a pregnant wife. These were the years that I'm laying the foundation for our family, and he wasn't picking up his end of the bargain,
Right.
in the emotional sector of things. He was always very physically present, and actually he stayed by my side in all of my therapy, and he could have easily been like, "You're crazy," because I was crazy. I had erratic behavior.
Yeah.
I was going back and forth with these different parts of me from my childhood. And so,
Do
anyway,
you feel, Melissa, really quick, do you feel like the emotion or lack of emotional support was picked up on more once he got back into the porn, even though you didn't?
This was at its peak. Yeah. When I was pregnant with Madeline is when, it was bad.
Yeah, I think
I was treated, it was not the same treatment.
Right.
It was almost as if I wasn't pregnant. I would be like, "Honey, my hips are burning. Can you
Yeah,
help me?"
because I think
he didn't even.
Sorry, with the
Yeah.
porn, it destroys you from the inside, but it's
Right.
I projected everything on her because I was so, you feel dirty and worthless.
You did project.
And
that's
so
right.
any little thing I could blame her for, I
It's
would
you
do
and your
that.
trauma.
Yeah, so
like gaslighting,
it was
and stuff like
gaslight.
that.
Yeah,
was,
exactly.
yeah.
So I was doing a lot of that, and she had no clue. To her, I seemed like I had everything together.
I put him up on this big pedestal.
Yeah, I had
And I
everything
thought,
together.
I'm just a small little ant, and
Right.
I'm screwed up.
Mm.
I'm broken, I'm screwed up, I'm not a good mom. This just fed into the self-loathing and shame.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So after that, baby number 3 was born. We had 3 kids, 3 and under at this point, which was wild. I was tandem nursing. It was just like a crazy time. But our marriage was in total turmoil. We had been in couples therapy already and did a program called Prepare and Enrich, which was really helpful helping us understand tools to use in our arguments. Because at this point we were fighting like every day. Divorce was being brought up.
Yeah.
I was speaking to the therapist more about divorce, and this was over the course of that whole pregnancy, where I was actually sitting in this place of, the substance abuse was really bad. The emotional withdrawal was, I just felt like I was living alone in our marriage.
Yeah.
And then I'd show up physically, and it was just it just wasn't how it should be. And I knew there was something in me that was like, this isn't right. There's something wrong here.
I think she always knew there was something about me she didn't know. Like there was something.
Like intuitively.
Yeah, she knew there was something off, but she could never put her finger on it.
I would have never guessed.
Yeah.
But anyway, so our 3rd child was born. Beautiful labor. I was actually able to use a lot of my tools I learned in therapy for my labors, which was kind of a gift. And I just want to say too, this sounds all really dark, but God sprinkled throughout this time moments of peace and joy. There were summers where we just were in our pool and we were having fun. And, it's like sometimes our body takes breaks from all the hard work and you just got to go with it. So our kids brought us a lot of purpose, and Anthony's a phenomenal father. So, really, there were times of joy. I don't want to make it sound like there wasn't any joy in our life.
Yeah.
But anyway, so after our 3rd was born, I already talked about that with the ages 3 and under. But we chose to abstain because I had to learn a new method, and this is where Sarah comes in with Marquette. So with our 2nd child, when we had the surprise pregnancy, I thought I was doing everything right, and I was just very fertile. And so having with Marquette, having that second thing to look at the monitor to kind of check you, and you kind of had that second thing to reference was really helpful. But I really just couldn't wrap my head around anything else at this point. We were in therapy and the 3 kids, and I was dealing with breastfeeding issues and potty training, and it was just, it was a lot. So at this point, this brings me to the night, a memorable fight that we had. Our 3rd one was only 2 months old, and I remember I held Anthony's hand, and I told him, I don't have to do this anymore. Like I'm so tired of this. I'm fighting for our marriage, and I'm done. Like, and I remember I laughed, like I started laughing and like a crazy lady. I was just like,
I think
I don't have to do this. Like, what am I doing? I'm so tired.
Yeah.
I have been carrying this burden on my own for so long, and it's so exhausting. And I can't keep trying to like beat his walls down because it's not working. So I'm done. And I kind of just like went upstairs and took a shower and went to bed. But that was a pretty pivotal moment.
Yeah, that was so that night when she did that, then I knew she wasn't bluffing. I could tell she was serious. I was like, okay, well, she, you know, divorce might be it might really be happening.
It had been brought up quite a bit to this point.
Yeah, but it was just talk
not like
before.
you like ending up here, but
then that night I stayed downstairs, I prayed a rosary, and I just asked the Lord to just guide me, and whatever he wanted me to do, I would do it. And I was just like, I don't care anymore, whatever you want me to do, I'll do it. And I just felt in my heart that he said, like, you got to tell her. You got to tell her about your sexual past, your SSA, your, you know, the male porn. And, you know, I knew when I would do that, that could possibly easily end in divorce, and nobody would blame her. You know, she would, I mean, she could tell anybody and they wouldn't be like, you know, she'd have every reason to divorce me and get an annulment. So I contacted that therapist that she had been seeing. I knew her well. She kind of walked through all of this with us for the past couple of years. And, you know, she kind of talked me through how I should tell Melissa. And yeah, after a couple sessions, I came home one night and I'm just like, hey, we got to talk. And she kind of started freaking out. She's like, what's going on? What are you doing? Like,
it kind of hit me a little bit.
She thought I was going to divorce her. Like, I was going to leave her. That's what she thought I was going to say.
It's easier to dish it, you know?
Yeah. And then then I just kind of sat down and broke down crying and told her, I told her everything. And yeah, that was kind of like, sorry.
That was the moment.
That was kind of like the turning point for us. So she felt, I mean, she was shocked. She had no idea.
I was shocked.
I told her about everything, including the porn while we were married, you know, in our marriage.
But you guys, I had been praying for this for so many years.
And
it felt like I met my husband for the first time. There was some sort of, I mean, I could see it on his body. This weight just totally lifted.
Yeah, it was just a huge weight lift off my shoulder. I mean, something I had never dreamed.
It was a big deal.
I was ever going to tell anybody. I told her, and I mean, her reaction was amazing, because she could have easily have been angry and resentful right away, but she wasn't. She was very loving and kind. She cried with me, and I think
it helped me, because I realized we're all broken, and it almost brought me so much ease knowing like I'm so hard on myself. Like at that point, like, oh my gosh, like I was just blown away, and I began quickly seeing the purpose for all the suffering that I had gone through. It was for my spouse. Like, talk about marriage and what you're called to do. But that took some time to process. But in that moment, I met my husband for the first time, and I just had a lot of compassion. You could just see the sadness that he carried.
Yeah, and though that moment was beautiful, the year that followed was probably our hardest year.
Most intense.
It was the most
intense. So the little
year.
high.
Yeah. So we were in marriage therapy. I told her we had this high, like we were in this blissful marriage. She knew all about me. Everything was great. But then anger and resentment started to
come it's infidelity
from her.
Yeah.
She started to have
questions.
She was like, well, what does this mean? Like, why? How could you keep this from me?
What else are you hiding? I had severe paranoia and mistrust. I added so many salt to the wounds because too I have my own trauma, and so all of my issues were just magnified. It was very difficult, but God's hand was in that, because had I not gone through my therapy, I wouldn't have been safe enough for Anthony to tell.
Right. So we
that's beautiful.
How are we doing on time, Val?
Keep rolling. You guys are doing
okay. So that next year, so things were great, and then they started getting bad again, and then we
COVID shutdowns hit.
Well, not yet. Well, we started going to marriage couples counseling again.
Just kind of picked it up again.
Yeah, and then COVID hit, and then the lockdown started. And actually, right during the lockdowns, we actually got an Airbnb somehow. I don't know.
I think it was because it was opening up, and I messaged the lady privately, and we rented it for a month.
Yeah, so
pretty
a
close to
month
our house.
we didn't want to disrupt the kids, so we kept them at the house, and we just kind of alternated back and forth from that place just to I mean, it was fairly peaceful for us, but it was just to have some separation.
What happened was I needed to process. I had a baby and 3 kids, 3 and under, when he told me, like, I didn't even have the capacity. Our marriage was going to end. Like, I had no hope at that time in my life. I had no idea what he was carrying. I just thought, like, this isn't what I ever imagined. I was desperate to run away from whatever it was. And
but it was a good time of
healing
and reflection, and
actually I left Anthony with my journals.
Yeah.
And he read them.
I think that's beautiful though, because then he knows where your heart was too.
Well, in her journals,
absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, in her journals, it was crazy because she even like she knew something was up a long time ago. It was crazy.
Yeah.
And they just kind of said like all this stuff. It was, I don't know, it was just weird. It's almost like she knew something was gonna happen.
I feel like that's grace too from God, from the sacrament of marriage.
So we got, things got better again.
So we came home and so that was a time of healing where I could process things. And we talked on the phone, like, we're partners with our kids. They come first. So there wasn't, yes, we were arguing, but we worked really well together. It wasn't like, I'm taking the kids and you get out of here.
Yeah.
So we settled back home, and then a couple months later, we kind of came to this peak where like the gaslighting got really bad again. And we were actually on vacation. And his substance addiction started coming up again. And that was a trigger for me because I had found out, oh, you were using all these substances when you were struggling with your porn. So if I see those substances again, are you struggling with porn again? Like, I didn't even understand
the correlation of the two and two for you in your mind.
Yeah. And so it was kind of triggering.
Yeah, so things got super bad on our vacation. It was actually a day before our final day, and her and I got in a really bad fight. It was at night, kids were asleep, and yeah, we were just
drinking. You were drinking like a fish.
Yeah, and we were yelling back.
And he was just, you guys, I'll never forget this day because I was looking at him and it was almost as if I couldn't hear, because the Lord, like, I will never forget it because so I felt Christ tell me something, and it was almost as if all this stuff, he was like throwing these daggers at me with all his harsh words, and it was gaslighting. So it can be so bad where you're just like, oh, come on, like.
But what did Christ tell you?
So Christ put his hand on my shoulder. I literally like felt him. And I'm sitting there outside, like on the ground while he's standing and just going. And Christ is like, get out of the way, Melissa. You're his crutch. Get out of the way and move so I can come to him. And it made me realize I had been still trying to fix my husband and grasp at whatever I could and whatever control I could. And it was so clear to me. I literally, there was this online group I was a part of for husbands and wives who struggled with, the husbands who struggled with same-sex attraction. There was a group for the married couples, for the men, and then for the wives. And I had been on this group for the wives for some time. And I remember I went on there and they just, for some reason, the Holy Spirit put whatever I needed right there. I was given what I needed, and all the stuff was loaded in our car. And I was like, I gotta go, Anthony. Like, I gotta get out of the way. And
we loaded up our vehicle.
We left early.
We left.
He was mad. He was really mad.
I thought she was going to change her mind on the way home. And then we get home and she's like, okay, I'm going to go stay at my mom's. So she dropped me off.
I took the 3 kids.
Yeah, I took my stuff out. She left.
It wasn't easy at all.
And there I was at my house all alone. And that was the first time I'd been alone in my house in probably 5 years.
Yeah.
But the intention of you leaving was to give him the time. Was that
so it wasn't like this angry thing again. It wasn't like, you're an asshole, I'm getting out of here. It was like, you need help.
Yeah.
And I'm in the way. And God made that very clear to me that I was enabling him because I was just like this big old crutch in his life. And Christ was like, let me in, Melissa.
Right.
Let me into your husband. Let him go.
You had to surrender that control to the ultimate controller.
Which is what marriage is really, because our spouses are ultimately a gift, right?
Melissa actually said to me that day, or that night, I think, she's like, you got to work on your shit. So I'm just going to leave. You work on your shit and I'm going to get out of the way. That's what she said to me. And she did. She ended up,
right? This is what happened.
So she left that day, and oh man. So this was a big day for me because I didn't really I was very numb to what had just happened. I was at my house all alone. First time, like I said, in 5 years. And I just had a day of, I don't know, younger parts came up or something in me, but I had a day of self-indulgence. I went out and got alcohol.
You threw a fit. That's what it is.
Yeah, I got a bunch of alcohol. I had marijuana. I looked at porn. Yeah, masturbated. And it was just a day of self-indulgence. I committed a bunch of my favorite sins. And so the day went by and I did all this stuff, and then nighttime hit, and it kind of like everything kind of sank in. I was like, what am I doing? Like, my family's gone, my wife's, in a little room with my kids, and
one room.
Yeah, one room with my kids cramped in there, and I'm in this big house, and I'm doing all these terrible things. And oh man, I had like that night I had an overwhelming feeling of just emptiness and loneliness, and it just really made me I don't know, I had to hit rock bottom almost. It made me realize just like, what a waste it all was, and how, I don't know, just how all that stuff's just not worth it. And yeah, so as the night went on, I went up to bed about, I don't know, 2 a.m. or something, and I finally like came to terms with the fact that this same-sex attraction that I was bearing for so long and thought I was always controlling, like, I don't have any control over it. And sorry, I get emotional talking.
Let it out.
No, I'm not. Anyways, no, so that night I laid in bed and I started bawling. I started crying like I'd never cried before. And I looked up at the ceiling and I just yelled out to God. I was like physically yelling in my room, and I was just like, God, I can't do this anymore. You have to take this from me. You have to help me. I just surrendered it all to him. And I don't know, it's like I felt that night just like this it was just like this overcoming flow of grace, just like flowed over my body. And it's like it's like, I don't know, it was just a transformative night for me, where I just really, I think, like, I was healed. And it's not that SSA went away, but what it did, I think, is God gave me the grace to take my cross and not let it be an anchor anymore. Before it was an anchor dragging me to hell, but now it could be a cross that could be my key to salvation.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, powerful.
So I don't want to make it sound like I was healed and it's all went away, but it just gave me the grace that I needed to take this and unite it with him.
Can I put that on a t-shirt?
Seriously.
Yeah, absolutely. As long as I get some royalties.
Yeah.
That is powerful.
So that night, it was just a transformative night for me. And I don't know, like the next week, or it was like a week and a half. What's that? Oh yeah, I'm getting to that. Nice. So like the next week and a half, I just felt like the Holy Spirit was with me. I just had this peaceful feeling in me, and I just felt like the Holy Spirit was there. And meanwhile, my wife doesn't know any of this is going on. She's in this house.
I was pretty shut down. God gave me a good break.
Yeah, she was very shut down, and I
couldn't really feel anything.
The next day I called her up all excited. We were still in communication this whole time. This was only day 2, actually, when she left. And I told her about it, and she was just kind of like, okay, well, that's nice. But she thought, I think she had a hard time even believing it, because I had shown I was going to change so many other times, and I always fell back, but this time was different. This had a major effect on me. It was a turning point. And
it was a surrender point.
It was a surrender
point. Like Melissa years back on her bed surrendering, it's so similar.
Exactly. And so the next day, what happened? Okay, so the next day a book arrived that I had ordered like a week before, and it was about another Catholic man that struggled with SSA, and he wrote a book about it, and just his conversion, and he's married now, and he's got kids and everything. So
it's called When the Sun Frees You.
Yeah.
By AJ Benjamin.
Yeah. So the night that I had that moment with God, he I don't know, the words were on my heart, and I don't know why, but just the words "open wide the doors of Christ," or "open wide the doors to Christ" were on my heart, and I don't know where they came from, but the next day I went to go open that book to read it, and those were the first words right in the first page. So I don't know, I just started crying. I became very emotional after this. I cried a lot. Okay. But
hearing you say that gives me the image of divine mercy for whatever reason. You know, like opening up that door and like seeing the blood and water pouring forth.
Yeah.
And it makes me think of reconciliation and the gift of confession with our sacramental life.
There you go.
And
right.
Yeah.
what a gift that is, because you were really only even able to see what you saw because of that gift of reconciliation, which is just so beautiful that was the phrase.
Right.
You know, like he's saying, run to my mercy.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was funny because right after I got out of the way, it was like Jesus was right there.
Yeah.
He just was like, one last step. All I need is Anthony to say yes.
Yeah.
So it's never.
What a sign that
you
we
forgive
can
yourself
trust
too.
him.
I think. Sorry, Val. What's
Well, I
that?
was just saying, what a sign that we can trust him, right? When he was telling you to get out of the way and you listened, he was a
Right.
faithful God. He didn't
Right.
just leave Anthony stranded or you stranded. He did the work.
It was hard. It was scary to say yes to that and be vulnerable
Sure.
to that. I had family asking me
Yeah,
questions,
of course.
friends, what are you up to? Oh,
So yeah.
so
The next day, the days that followed that. So I read that book like in a few days, and it was there was other really cool parts in there too. But
I know I feel like
I know, sorry,
it's
we're going over
you
on
guys
time.
were going over on time.
You're doing such a
It's
good
okay.
job.
okay, so then no, then I spent the next few days. So I had
this
it.
is done.
I had felt like God wanted me to write a letter to my parents about everything, about my past.
Part of his healing almost.
Well, part of they had no clue about
No.
the stuff that happened when I was a kid.
And actually, sorry, can I interject that I had a really hard time masking up. I had a lot of pain, and it was very difficult for me to continue to pretend around his family as well.
Yeah, so she was very supportive of me telling them. But
Sure.
over the next few days, I wrote up a letter for my parents, and then when things kind of settled down with us, I think Melissa was only gone for about a week then because she wasn't able to find a place to stay. It was kind of so
It
that
just
didn't
worked
work
out.
out. But
Did you write the letter after Retrovite?
no, I think it was before.
Okay.
Yeah, so we ended up going to my parents and told them I needed to tell them something. They were kind of like, what's going on? They had no idea what we were going to talk about. And we sat down with them, and I was really nervous because I had no idea what their reaction would be to it all. And I told them, and they were very kind and loving, and they received
There's
it
a lot
well.
of tears shed.
Yeah.
It was devastating
They
news for them.
had no idea. And I told them in the end of the letter, I'm like, you guys can tell anybody you want. I'm like so sick of keeping. I felt like so free from just keeping, I didn't want to keep that secret anymore. I'm like, tell whoever you want. I don't care. I'm going to tell people. So, so they ended up telling, I don't want to say too much, but they ended up telling another family member, and actually more stuff came out with another family member. So it was like almost an instant confirmation
for us and our suffering
from the Holy Spirit that I was supposed to do that because there was more healing for someone else.
Like we had no idea. We had no idea that another person was going to be affected by our own
vulnerability.
Yeah, that was hard to get to that point. It was 3-4 years of just like toil and labor.
Yeah.
Many tears shed, darkness, just this place where we didn't even know where the light was at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
And then that alone was like, whoa, God, like there is something beyond us here that we don't quite understand.
Yeah, it was meant to be that we were supposed to tell them.
Yeah.
And
so after that, you want to talk about Retrovite?
Yeah, then after that we attended it's called Retrovite, and it's a lifeline for marriages. It's a retreat, a couples retreat, but it's like for people on the brink of divorce. I mean, you can't make it through this Retrovite course, then you might you're probably not gonna make it. So we took that, and that was and
actually because of COVID, we could do it online. It was crazy because I had tried years before with the past 2 babies. I wanted to do it, but every time I had a nursing baby, and they were like, you can't, it just needs to be you and your spouse. And we would have to like go to Detroit or something, which is a city that's like, about an hour plus away. So leaving the kids, it just wouldn't have worked out, but God just made it happen again. And so because of COVID, there was the ability to, our kids stayed at our house and we had a family member watch them. And then we went to that family member's house and worked literally from morning to night for 3 days. It was hard work, but while we were doing it, we kind of already like knew some of the stuff we were being taught because of the therapy we had been doing. So that was a huge gift. And that was kind of this repair in our marriage that we needed, where we were able to just come back into this love. And actually our little Josephine Ann came out of that. Our last daughter, which is funny because we weren't expecting. Many times after we had the third one, we were like, man, we can't, we got to learn this new method. And I don't know if I could do one more right now. And we weren't in any rush, but it was like God's grace overcame us, and this gift of mercy and love in our marriage overcame us. And we were able to come together again and share in this beautiful moment of healing and hope. And that's when we conceived our fourth baby, which was, she's been the greatest gift. She's brought us to new heights. We actually had a home birth this last time, which was crazy, but God has just taken us to these heights that are just beyond anything we could have imagined.
He's really, I don't know, he's like really rewarded us, we feel. So our obedience to him.
So we just want to kind of finish with some things about marriage and NFP that we learned.
I want to
kind of tie it together a little bit.
I want to just say that, like during all of this, we remained obedient to NFP, remained obedient to God with NFP. It was a time of darkness for us, and it seemed like there was no light at the end of the tunnel. We didn't know what we were doing. And many, we even had some people tell us like, you probably shouldn't have any more kids right now. Like, use contraception, Band-Aid it. And we even thought about that at times, because it felt like, you feel like, oh, I'm bringing kids in the world and this is terrible. But I think that God brought each of our children at precisely the right time, that we needed it. And God knows what we need when we need it. So I truly believe that if we didn't stick with NFP throughout that time, we would have made it, but we would be living a very lifeless and mediocre marriage.
We wouldn't have two kids, probably.
It'd probably be like a partnership, we'd be like just holding on until the end, like trying to hold on. But
and we knew we couldn't settle for that,
I believe that God rewarded us because we stayed obedient to him. And now we just have, we have like incredible communication between us, and now all this stuff that was buried with both of us, this sexual past, came to the surface. And I don't think that had we not done NFP, it would have come to the surface. I think we would have just like Band-Aided our problems with sex. And
after baby.
You guys were saying like to me on the phone the other day that it was the abstinence that really brought you to talk about all these things, right? And
it was
had you Band-Aided with just sex and not been abstinent during that time with NFP, I mean, you can just kind of try to sex out your problems and never get to the root of them.
Exactly.
But you don't, when you repress things, we all like, when we suppress things, we also like repress and suppress joy. And because you were able to get to the root of that, now you're able to have like joy in your marriage again.
And we just feel like so much more joy and peace in our marriage. It's not perfect. We still argue on occasion, like a normal
couple, marriage is perfect. We're all right. Like we're all being refined and helping each other get to heaven. And
for sure.
Amen.
It's beautiful and joyful, but it's hard work sometimes.
It is
till our grave. But one thing that we really learned was that there's 3 pillars to marriage, and you have the physical, the spiritual, and the emotional. And a lot of people physically contracept, that's all we think of. But when we think of the word contracept, it's to withhold. And, emotionally contracepting can do just as much damage as physically contracepting or spiritually.
Right.
And so, when you knock over one leg of the stool's not going to stand right. And so, using NFP, that opened up that line of communication for us, but then it also allowed us to sit in some uncomfortable feelings, like you said, Val, where we're able to tackle that emotional part of it, but also we were willing. And it took Anthony a little while there. But through my healing with his SSA stuff, that was a very difficult thing to wrap my head around. And the world has a lot of lies around that. And Satan even tried to bring me to that place where he was telling me those lies. What does this mean for our marriage? What's it going to be like when you're older? What's it going to be like for your kids? And none of that matters anymore, because it was such a gift for my husband to be able to get to this point and to say yes. I've seen marriages, we know people where you have one spouse trying to heal and the other one isn't. And it changes generations, not for the better. But God's love, overcomes a lot of sin. So a couple of things I just wanted to share that I kind of wanted to wrap up with. And then I know Anthony has like one more thing to share too. So for us, what we really learned is that we're called to be flexible to the conduct of God, and that we're to be obedient beyond our comfort and our measures, and beyond our understanding. I mean, I had no clue what my husband was holding. And then in hindsight, years later, I would do it all over again, so he has laws in place in order for us to heal, because he knows better than we do. And that another thing is that our God is not a sterile God, nor should our marriage ever be. And so God can do amazing things when we're obedient, just like he sent us baby 3 as our little surprise. And then baby 4 came, and man, our house is busy. There's a lot of pitter patters, but the seeds of provision here, you got to think ahead, and how many seeds are being planted that we have no clue with what our yes said. So we also learned that with fertility, when you abstain, God can do things with that abstinence, and he can move that productivity in your marriage elsewhere. So during the time when we were abstaining, and I know you guys probably teach this, well, Sarah does probably a lot about the fertile window and when you have to abstain, because that is a cross for us in our marriage if we're very fertile, that we kind of have to move that fertility elsewhere. And we've had so many beautiful things come out of those times of abstinence now that we look back. And then the other thing is just that we understand what marriage being total, fruitful, and faithful is now, and what God can do with that. We're no longer bound by the same chains we once were. I have physically experienced healing in my body. Entering into the marriage, I couldn't feel anything when we would be intimate with one another. And that was scary and hard, and it was upsetting. And so to be able to be at this point where him and I are united without these extra things in the way that God really intended it to be. It's not perfect because we're a normal married couple and we're tired a lot. But that black hole that we were in once, when we look back, the light is so bright at the end of the tunnel that it's not a big black hole anymore. It's just this tiny little tunnel.
But you guys are shining. You guys are radiating.
Bright light. It's so worth it to fight for it, like we had 3 therapists at one time and we were really trying. So it's just really worth it to fight for your marriage.
So
because
I just want to say one more thing, you guys, is that if we want to live out the Gospels, I just came to this the other day. We can't just live it out with our spirit. We have to live it out with our bodies, because God made us body and soul. He didn't make a mistake in that. And I think that if you look back at like Adam and Eve, what did they cover up first? What part of their body did they cover? What kind of shame did they carry? They used the fig leaves to cover up those areas that we're most vulnerable in. And so, God made us biological and theological, body and soul, and he wants to heal all parts, not just our spirit. And so if we have this true drive to unite ourselves with the Lord and live out his truth the best we can and try and live out the call to live in his will, we can't just do it with the spirit. You got to tie in both things. And it's difficult, but make no mistake that he made us body and soul and we've lived it out. So
yeah, and I just wanted to say that this kind of was on my heart the other day, that this is our story, and it's a beautiful one, but really this is God's story, and this is a story that God wants to write.
You're so emotional.
Oh God, this is a story that God wants to write in each and every one of our lives, because it's really just meeting us where we're at in our brokenness, whatever that is, and healing us and making us new. So and we just have to say yes and surrender to him, and he'll do the rest.
And I can't tell you the gifts that this has given to our children and our family, our parenthood. It's changed our lives. We've learned about theology of the body over the years, and God's just been really providing in ways to educate our children differently than the ways that we kind of missed out on, and we had to pay the price for and kind of clean up. So there's many tools out there for families. And I'm going to give Val that resource page that him and I kind of came up with. If anybody's interested, there's going to be some books that we found over the years, especially on our sexuality and in marriage and whatnot.
And I just wanted to say, obviously I'm not a therapist or anything, but if there's any men out there that have this struggle, that, you know, maybe this story's touched them because they haven't been able to open up about it, and maybe they thought there's like I did, like keeping it buried and repressing it. I don't know. Suppressing it. But, you know, I believe that stuff tends to manifest throughout your life in different ways if you don't deal with it.
You
know,
think you're hiding it, but it's really
yeah. So I'm just saying, if there's any men out there that struggle with this, Val would have my email address, and, you know, I'm always I'm just willing to be there for support or even resources, just what we use. We run some Facebook groups and stuff that really helped us along the way. So yeah,
we had to have support. We couldn't have done it alone.
Yeah, whether it's for resources or
and
prayer,
just bringing it to light to maybe someone that struggles with the same thing and has, you know, to be able to bring it to light to you. So thank you for being willing to walk with other people. And I'm sure, Melissa, you would feel the same way if there's a wife and their husband is struggling with this, like to be able to walk with them in their feelings too.
Even just with pornography addiction.
Right.
I mean,
so reach out to us if you want to, you know, we keep it confidential, Sarah and I. Reach out to us and we will connect you with Melissa and Anthony if you would like to chat with them more about this. There's so much in your story that I like wrote so many notes, but I just feel like I just need to sit back because the Holy Spirit just worked through you guys. So I'm maybe Sarah and I will get on and share our little things that we got from your story that we want to elaborate on, and like on Instagram or sometime, to be able to share more, because there's just so much beauty that the Lord has done in your lives. And I can't thank you guys enough for your vulnerability. And like, I know this is hard stuff to share and it's so real in your life, but being able to just, you're doing this, your why behind this is so you can help other people and help other people grow closer to the Lord and help other marriages. And it's just so beautiful. So thank you guys for being
thank you for thanks for the opportunity, you guys.
Yeah, and thank you for doing this. And
and thanks, Sarah, for walking by our side during this some
kidding,
of the time.
Sarah,
My goodness.
You put up with a lot during that time, because I know Melissa's texting you a lot.
Oh man, she helped me stay through that time of abstinence. So you're part of this too, you know.
No,
God works it all for his good.
Many parts to the one body.
That's right.
Hey, I think I need to hear Anthony say that one line again, though.
What's that?
Write it down for my t-shirt.
What's that?
What was it?
The cross.
Yeah. So okay, now I got to say it. So our struggles can be either an anchor that drags us to hell, or a cross that we can unite with Christ and become our
anchor that drags us down. You could say that too. Sure. That drags us down.
That drags us down. Or the cross that we unite with Christ and becomes our key to salvation.
Amen.
Preach it.
Yeah. Amen.
Just kidding.
And on that note,
we're gonna
when you get the t-shirt made, send it over here.
Yep,
send us one.
All right.
Place your orders.
We're gonna have to work on something.
Seriously.
Well, thank you guys.
All right, guys.
Thanks.
Well, thank you. Good night. God bless.
Good night.
Bye.
Okay, so my mercy moment has obviously been this restoration with Pat, just because, you know, we had those 2 weeks of a deep valley, and I think it was like 2 or 3 weeks of the deep valley, and just seeing the power of prayer. I know it sounds so cliche, but how us coming together for married prayer has really been the lifeline. Yeah. So just
beautiful.
Prayer and community.
Yeah. God in the saddle, right? Straight 3 chords.
I really should have prefaced by saying, like, we pray the rosary together, but like, other than that, for as long as we've known each other, you know, however many years it's been, we were 14. That's just not been a part of our married life, or really, you know, when we were friends. Anyway, so it's life-changing. So I pray that it can continue.
Absolutely. Oh, I love it. It's so awesome. Well, you kind of made me think of my mercy moment. So thank you. Cause I didn't
Oh, you're-
really think of it. And just the fact that, like I always struggle with not doing things because I feel like I'm gonna fail at them. So almost like if I can't do it perfect, I'm just done with it. Whether it's dieting, whether it's good sleep habits, whether it's whatever, right? Like you get the point. And at the retreat I went to, like the Lord knocked me over the head, and he's just like, perfection's an enemy of good. Am I saying that even right? Just like, don't try to be perfect. He's like, I know you're sinful. I know you're gonna mess up, but just try.
Right.
Like, and so I've just been marking things on my calendar, like, all right, I'm gonna do one thing for a month at a time and every day. And so like that for me, it's been praying the rosary every day. And I'm not gonna get mad at myself and listen to the lie of the devil to give up if I fail one day.
Yeah.
So, like I'll be honest, 2/3 I've been doing great. 1/3 I've been failing, but it's been beautiful. God in God's mercy saying, but look it, you did better more than you failed. So I guess that's been his mercy. And you made me think of it was saying like we restarted praying together, right? Like there's always time to restart things, and the devil wants to lie and say, nope, just give up. So I love it. His mercy is awesome.
I love it because I have not prayed my rosary today. So I'm actually giggling inside that you said that.
Well, you can go pray with Pat real quick.
As I fall asleep.
Yeah, probably have your angel finish praying it for you. So
Yeah,
with that, baby time, by the time this show is out, this baby will probably be here. Comment below, boy or girl. Boy or girl? Huh?
Should I show my swollen feet? I'm like, I think I have edema. I need to stand up and walk.
That's a nurse language.
Swelling.
Gotcha. Thank you. That makes more sense to me.
Yep, it's there.
But thank you everybody for joining us. Subscribe, share with a friend, share on social media. This show needs to get out there. It will resonate and help people with Anthony and Melissa's sharing today. So not us, but God working through them. Share it so we can bless others.
Men.
It's a wrap. Anything else?
No.
All right.
Leave it.
Adios.
Good night.
Enjoy.